We have a lot to talk about today. Ladies and gentlemen, last week the Fallout TV show came out. I binged it pretty quickly, finishing it in a couple of days. I absolutely loved it. We have our full review out on Retro Rewind. I'll have that linked down below if you want to see an episode-by-episode breakdown. It's over an hour long. We go into the thick of everything that happens in this TV show. But what I was really stewing on over this weekend, thinking about it constantly, playing a ton of Fallout games, gathering footage, and trying to also distance myself a bit from how much I love the TV show, just to be objective here, because yes, spoiler alert, I absolutely love this show. I was stunned at how great it was. But we have to be objective here because we're talking about Fallout lore, we're talking about New Vegas, the beloved Fallout game, and the potential of a retcon. Has Bethesda ruined the lore here? Did the TV show disrupt things? So I spent a lot of time sifting through wikis, playing the games, just gathering all of the information required to talk about the ending of the Fallout TV show. Now keep in mind, if you're watching this and you haven't finished the TV show, we're going to spoil everything that happens there. Every major reveal, every major plot twist, the ending, everything's gonna get spoiled. So watch at your own risk. But also, if you haven't completed any of the Fallout games, there are going to be spoilers for those as well. I know most of my audience is pretty familiar with the franchise already, but if you're new, you're coming in here, you're curious, wait till you finish all this stuff or brush up on things, and then come back and get the ending and everything explained to you. So with that, spoiler warning on, let's get into it. I want to start off with Shady Sands, because that's at the heart of this entire conflict. It really starts with a single image on a chalkboard of the fall of Shady Sands and then a nuke shortly thereafter, or potentially during that same year. For those who don't know, the immediate problem here is you have the fall of Shady Sands and potentially the destruction of it happening 4 years before New Vegas, thus suggesting that even though New Vegas has referenced Shady Sands multiple times, as we'll show in this video, that there has been a retcon saying that no, Shady Sands was actually destroyed that whole time and what Obsidian did doesn't count at all. At the same time, Emil Pagliarulo has taken to Twitter saying that New Vegas is fully canon. So was it an oversight? Well, let's take a look at the facts within the games, and we really won't truly know until Fallout Season 2 comes around, but at least we can make some pretty educated guesses based on the information available there. Shady Sands is introduced in Fallout 1 as nothing more than a small settlement. Doesn't really matter in the scheme of your entire playthrough. It's not until Fallout 2 that it has some major consequence, and this is in 2241, where it explodes into being the thriving capital of the NCR. And according to an NCR holodisc that you can find in New Reno, or can actually be given to you by President Tandy, they actually answer here how big the NCR is. Founded 80 years ago, the NCR is now comprised of the states of Shady, Los Angeles, Maxon, Hub, and Dayglow. Approximately 700,000 citizens are pleased to call NCR home. This is an important note that we'll get into later, because 34,000 people-ish lived in Shady Sands, according to the Fallout TV show. So as you can already see here, that's a 5% dent into the actual entire population of the NCR. Not too much, and certainly not enough to wipe out the entirety of the faction like some people have been suggesting. We leap from Fallout 2 to Fallout New Vegas, which takes place in 2281. We get a couple of mentionings of Shady Sands here. Let's start off with Angela Williams.
I know I don't sound the part. Get raised by Brahmin ranchers and you never lose the twang. Drives Hildern crazy. But I know every inch of the power grid from Hoover Dam to Shady Sands. That's what we do here. Try to optimize the power output from the dam. Some of the others are working on an agricultural project, but truth be told, they aren't making much progress. Not yet, anyway.
So this suggests by 2281 that the Hoover Dam was going to be used, or is being used, to power Shady Sands. So at that point in time, technically, according to the lore, that place should still be up and running and not a complete crater in the ground. We also have a less significant mentioning of Shady Sands in a missionary during the GI Blues quest, when he's quizzing you on your NCR knowledge, testing you for your citizenship.
Okay, second question. What was the original name of the NCR capital? Aradesh, Shady Sands, the Boneyard, or Vault 13? Right. Fine then, last question.
So now we skip forward to Fallout 4. This takes place in 2287. Two mentionings of Shady Sands here. For starters, one is a fun one. It's the mysterious stranger, where you find out he's been spotted around Shady Sands, but these are apparently really old rumors. You can find this on a note under the bed in Valentine's Detective Agency. Most likely, this is just a nod to the mysterious stranger who's been a part of the Fallout series since its inception. So this is just kind of a fun nod to this perk kind of thing actually being a real living character in the world for that long. Meanwhile, Kellogg's memories do dive pretty deep into the lore of Shady Sands. Now, Kellogg was able to live for a very long time, over 100 years, because of cybernetic enhancements, so he was actually there during the rise of the NCR. And you'll see here in some of the lines during his memory section of the radio that Shady Sands has been waiting a long while for the hub to make its vote and join in the NCR. 55% were in favor of that. It mentions President Aradesh, who is the first ever president of the NCR, but overall just kind of recounting old tales that have been firmed up in lore already. Nothing really breaking the mold here, but again, it's really important to note every mentioning of the NCR and Shady Sands in these recent Fallout experiences, because now we have to get into the TV show. What's happening with Shady Sands now in the TV show in the year 2296? Here it's depicted as the first capital of the NCR, and perhaps a small detail worth noting is that, again, the population is 34,852. Now, if Fallout 2 is to be believed, which I imagine many people want to believe that, then the NCR lost about 5% of its population due to Hank McClane, which is hardly a dent with that metric in mind. Now, also worth considering, and something that we'll discuss later with the strip, is that the Fallout TV show seems to create vast stretches between locations. So this is something quite similar to Fallout 1 and 2, where you look at the map and you have to run a big distance before you get to the next location, meaning that Shady Sands remnants can be scattered while another group thrives in the hub. We do see multiple renditions of this, Vault 4 being one of them. We also see Sorrel later in the show. So there are different pockets of Shady Sands survivors. Now, as for the fall of Shady Sands, that happens in 2277 according to Vault 4, and this is a place mostly populated by those remnants of Shady Sands who also worship Moldaver as the Flame Mother. I know I'm giving the history on Shady Sands here, but I will say my take here is this is just a poorly presented piece of information. I think it's clear that when you see the fall of Shady Sands in a year, and the arrow saying next after that is the nuke, that means later in the timeline. We still don't know when. I think if this is a mistake, it's probably the best mistake you can make, because Bethesda and Kilter Films can really save themselves here and kind of put this in any year that fits the lore properly. There's still some hangups, some questions that we will address at the end of this video, but in my opinion here, I think it's just saying, hey, Shady Sands went through something that led to a fall, and then from that fall, Hank McClane came in, did his thing, and now Shady Sands is a crater. But to me, that's how I interpreted it. It reminds me of that, I think it was the blue dress, gold dress debate on Twitter. Like, which one do you see? And it was all about perspective. For me, I looked at the chalkboard and immediately went, oh, okay, so after the fall, some type of nuke went off. We still don't know when. There can still be understandable concern that New Vegas has been retconned, but I truly don't think Bethesda's going to go ahead and do that. In fact, I think there's information that's intentionally kept a secret, because Season 2, as we already know, is going to explore everything from New Vegas to, I think, the rise of the NCR, as they conclude the season with the Brotherhood of Steel being in this place of pure power and clearly running the waste, while the NCR seems scattered and weak. So I think a lot of this is going to be about Hank taking over the Strip, the rise of the NCR. And so one of the clues that's clearly hidden from us is the ages of two of our three main characters in Lucy and Maximus. We learned that both these characters lived here in Shady Sands. Lucy's mom brought her here with Norm, only to have Hank show up, strip them away, and as Vault-Tec seemingly has access to the nukes, destroy Shady Sands with it. Now, since their ages are a mystery, this would be a quick route to solving this all. The popular guess right now is Maximus is around 21 by the start of the show, and was 7 when Shady Sands was destroyed, meaning that it would be 2282 by the time the NCR capital is destroyed. In fairness, you have to suspend your disbelief a bit. You have to think that immediately after the events of New Vegas, Shady Sands just gets nuked, and then by the time the TV show hits, the Strip is destroyed too. It's a pretty quick fall, for sure, and I understand people having trouble grasping that if that ends up being the case. I'll just say this as a side note, as someone who's a writer, this is why for our game that we're doing, we have a timeline of every event and we treat it like a Jenga tower. Like, I do not touch any dates in the timeline, because in my head, it's once you remove one or you change one, it all comes crashing down. It's a real dangerous place. So if they did change something here, it's going to be a collapsing effect that will continue to get wider and wider as the show progresses. Lucy does mention in the show, as a kid, she felt the warmth of the sun on her skin and how real it truly felt, but also was led to believe that her mom died of the Great Vault Plague of 77. So is she just too young to remember her time in the NCR, or is it just a metaphor for how her mom made her feel? Maximus also mentioned during that scene, looking over Shady Sands, that the NCR didn't work out. To me, so far, from what I've seen, I don't think this ruins or destabilizes anything. Do we have question marks? Can we have concerns? Sure, but to the people who I think were absolutely freaking out like Bethesda destroyed something here, I think it's commendable that they injected almost 0% outside of the visuals of their own version of Fallout and built an entire season in possibly Fallout's most popular rendition ever through Fallout 1, 2, and New Vegas. I personally didn't expect that. Now, Moldaver, as I mentioned earlier, is worshipped in Vault 4 as the Flame Mother, likely for her foresight on what was to come of this world and seeing through Vault Tech for what it was. She also seems to be a prominent figure of the NCR nowadays. Meanwhile, Sorrel calls himself the president to the Ghoul when his NCR Rangers capture him. Since Fallout's inception, there's been 5 presidents in the NCR, so could this hint at some sort of political strife after Aaron Kimball had left office or was forced out of office? Like, was there some type of political tension ongoing after New Vegas leading into the TV show? Again, I understand concerns, sure, but to the people who have claimed that this has been outright ruined, New Vegas destroyed, stomped over by Bethesda, we'll make a whole separate video, kind of like a part 2 to this, just talking about what I think is a complete myth about Bethesda hating New Vegas. So to me, as a diehard Fallout fan who loves New Vegas, who loves Fallout 3, I don't see a betrayal of the lore. I see a TV show that finished season 1. It has a complete story for season 1 where all the character arcs were fulfilled, all the goals were met. Lucy found her dad, Maximus has risen to the top in an inadvertent way, and the Ghoul has his purpose clearly revealed of what he's been doing in the Waste all along. All those resolutions have been met, and now there's a lot of plot openings for season 2 to pick things up, which is very common in television. Now we get an entire season, instead of splitting focus, an entire season focused on New Vegas, on Shady Sands, on the NCR. I don't think you could ask for more as a Fallout fan, and I say it as someone who does prefer Fallout 3 over New Vegas. Speaking of which, there's the other element of the Fallout lore, the New Vegas strip itself. So at the very, very end, we see Hank McClane run up in power armor. This shot has been stuck in my head for days. I just love how epic Kyle MacLachlan looks here, like in the power armor. It's all cut up. It's just such a cool shot to me. And then you see the New Vegas strip pretty much alone in the desert, nothing surrounding it, might we add, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And it's destroyed. It's not lit up at all. It's not in the state we had left it in when we last played the game. So things have changed here as well. Not only is the strip destroyed, but in the epilogue, these end credit scenes are pretty important. We see the downed NCR vertebrates. We see a Deathclaw skull. We see even Securitrons down at the gates. What this means is that Bethesda Game Studios is going to do what I think is one of the coolest things imaginable for the show, and that's pick a canon ending for Fallout New Vegas and build upon it. Something that I feel pretty confident saying if Obsidian pitched the same idea for a Fallout New Vegas 2, that we'd all be losing our minds over. Hey, we're going to go ahead and make a game where the strip has been destroyed. This is the canon ending choice, and now it's a game about picking a faction that's going to take over the strip, and we're going to build out from there. I don't know. I feel like we'd be all losing our minds over that, but maybe I'm wrong. We'll talk about that more in a separate video. For now, the canon endings, that's the big question mark here. You have potentially the Yes Man ending, where, listen for yourself, you can hear what they say in the ending.
The courier, with the aid of Yes Man, drove both the Legion and the NCR from Hoover Dam, securing New Vegas's independence from both factions. With Mr. House out of the picture, the remaining Securitrons on the strip were hard-pressed to keep order. Anarchy ruled the streets. When the fires died, New Vegas remained, assuming its position as an independent power in the Mojave. Preferring neither the best of the NCR nor the worst of the Legion, the courier was the man responsible for a truly independent New Vegas. He had removed Mr. House from power over the Strip and broken the influence of the NCR and Caesar's Legion in the Mojave Wasteland.
There's also the Mr. House ending, which you can listen for yourself on how things go there.
Mr. House's Securitron army took control of Hoover Dam and the Strip, pushing both the Legion and the exhausted NCR out of New Vegas. Mr. House continued to run New Vegas his way, a despotic vision of pre-war glory. The streets were orderly, efficient, cold. New Vegas continued to be the sole place in the wasteland where fortunes were won and lost in the blink of an eye. The courier, fair and kind-hearted to those in the wasteland, ensured that Mr. House would keep New Vegas stable and secure for future generations. Mr. House afforded her every luxury at his disposal in the Lucky 38, both out of gratitude and a quiet pride in his choice of lieutenants.
Now keep in mind, we do see Mr. House there at this big council-like meeting of all these major corporations where Vault-Tec's basically going to sell the vaults to these corps for experiments to be conducted. And it's revealed there that Vault-Tec pretty much takes the first shot that starts the Great War to kind of rebuild America, rebuild this world on a clean slate. And effectively, may the best vision win. Now, since that connection was established nice and early between Mr. Henry as well as Robert House, is it possible that Hank McClane has gone out here to the Strip to find Robert House? Again, according to the Mr. House ending, we know the NCR got pushed back and they were weakened. We know the Legion got pushed back. We also have the Courier apparently helped maintain things for generations, which I think could be a bit of a question mark there on how quickly things fell. Meanwhile, the Yes Man ending is interesting in that they say anarchy ruled the streets. And I feel like that could be more indicative of the potential canonical ending. But since that partnership, that connection is there between Robert House as well as Hank McClane, I feel like that's something as well that they could explore. Still, I think it's one of these two endings, no doubt, that is going to be the canonical one. It's going to be really interesting to see which one they pick. I think my money would probably be on Robert House because I think that has the most sensible plot building elements. But it would also be kind of cool if they determined that the player wins it at the end and the Courier is just gone now. But I feel like you have to build it upon some character, and if it's one of the player characters and then you start to define them, that would be the biggest mistake Bethesda could make. So I hope it is the Mr. House ending. But also, one of the, quote, retcons is the surrounding area for Fallout New Vegas is much different in the show versus what you see in the game. What you see in the game are a couple of areas nearby as well. Now, I think people are overanalyzing this, frankly. That's going to sound defensive of me, and I understand. But I say this because Fallout New Vegas was a 2010 video game. Its map was much smaller than most open world games nowadays, and so the environments had to be clumped together more. I don't think it was an accurate rendition of what the original Fallout games represented in Fallout 1 and 2, where there were massive gaps between areas. I also think when you look at Bethesda Game Studios' design philosophy and its map, they like to see things in the distance and drag you to those one by one. I think there's a difference between the game design as well as the accurate representation of what the Fallout franchise stands for, and I would say that the show closely abides by the originals. And so when I look at what's going on here with this TV show, I do think it's more accurate that it would just kind of be out there in the middle of nowhere, especially if you consider Lonesome Road.
No damage done. Not yet. Maybe in years. Keeps the bear fenced. If Caesar can't drive it back, fire might. Only delays the end for the bull. A new wall for them to scale and cross once they're done with the Mojave and Hoover Dam. Never again do you or any other courier and caravan need walk that route. Let the Mojave breathe without that asphalt scar raking it.
So if Bethesda truly accounted for everything here, then you're kind of building off a weakened supply line from the NCR to the Strip. Maybe the NCR was the final ending, and since their stranglehold was weakened by the Long 15 nuke, like maybe now something's changed there. I don't know. There's a lot of ways they could go about it. Point being is there's enough question marks where I don't read it as really a mistake, but the typical season 1 to season 2 speculation you see after any great TV show. So yeah, I don't think Bethesda ruined the lore. I don't think they ruined New Vegas. I don't think they did really anything wrong here. If anything, I thought they celebrated the classic Fallouts in New Vegas way more than I expected, and they're about to go up to a whole other level in celebrating it, and I can't wait for them to do the soundtrack and everything. It's going to be awesome, awesome, awesome stuff. But I also said at the start of this video, I'm going to have questions to ask. So what questions do I have at the end of this season? Well, let's get into some of those. Number one, why are we nuking a place that has fallen? If we're seeing the Shady Sands area falling, does Hank McClane say, I want to accelerate that? What's going on here? And remember, this is information that's coming from remnants of Shady Sands. So this is their perspective of the events here. So why nuke a place that's destroying itself effectively? Is that based on what Vault-Tec wanted to do, which is a clean slate? Hank McClane had very much an our world versus their world mentality here. So it kind of lines up, but still a question worth asking. Better yet, second question here, was it even a nuke? I imagine it was, given the size of the crater and how much it took out, but was it a nuke? We don't really see the destruction. We see the aftermath with the Brotherhood of Steel picking the area clean and finding Maximus, and that's really it. We don't know quite what happened during that instance. Third question, how did the fall get so bad that it led to this, right? You look at the NCR's history. I think this is the toughest one for me to grasp. It's built up over all of these years and then just so quickly goes downhill in this small time gap. So I think it's possible to rationalize it, but they need to depict a very drastic, depraved scenario where the NCR is falling apart here in Shady Sands. Number 4, and this was brought to my attention by more classic Fallout fans, but I think it's one that's definitely worth asking, which is, why is Shady Sands not out in the desert, but effectively part of LA? You look at it this way, residents of Vault 15 have helped build this place up, and we didn't see where Vault 15 was next to Shady Sands. And so as long as that can be established, I think you can just go, okay, maybe it was a bit of a relocation here. But again, I think location in that instance really does need to make some sense. I think it's fine. It's near LA. It's just, you got to make that connection to the vaults and how this place became populated. Or did you relocate? Like, what was the reason behind this change? Or was it, what I imagine it was, is an oversight? Fifth question is, was Robert House aware of when the nukes were going to launch? I mean, he was there at the meeting where they decided, we're going to wipe the slate clean. So how weren't his Vegas defenses ready in time if he had that time to prepare? Did he have different plans before then? Did Vault Tech launch earlier than he or anyone expected, given that Vault Tech needed to recreate America on their own, basically? Sixth question is, I imagine this is going to be a whole story about powering the strip, rebuilding the strip. So is Cold Fusion going to power the strip? I think that's a less pressing question, but still one worth asking. And then 7, lastly, is, since the strip is destroyed, why is it important, and why does Hank have his sights set on it? We know as Fallout fans, when it was thriving and alive, like, oh, this is an important place, but now that it's been destroyed and it was a place that you could gain everything and lose everything at once, what does Hank see in this place? That's the other thing I'm really interested in seeing him rebuild. Is he going to try to reactivate the Securitrons, build his own army, and go and attack the remnants of the NCR, the Brotherhood? Is he going to start creating his own version of the Waste? Like, what's the goal there? So yeah, like I said, we had a lot to talk about in this video. This is an ending that I found, as a huge fan, it's not like on a philosophical level thought-provoking, but as a huge fan, super thought-provoking. Like, there's just a lot of little things to pick at here. And overall, that last series of questions was, to me, what I found to be gaps in the story or inconsistencies. But as for things like Shady Sands, not concerned. New Vegas, definitely not concerned. And especially with season 2 being built all around this, I have confidence. Look, when I went into this show, you all saw, I was like, okay, it visually looks great. I have some worries about pre-established characters as sort of the leads in a Fallout show, since I only know it as an RPG. That proved me wrong. I had worries about caring about these characters. Totally wrong on that. I had worries about them capturing the feel of the game in the show. Totally wrong about that. Like, they've given me enough good stuff here to say, okay, I trust you, and I think you're going to do something great for season 2. No doubt the stakes, pardon the pun, are higher here in season 2. That's absolutely true, especially when you're starting to interfere, if you will, with the most celebrated game in the Fallout franchise. But what I personally look at it as is building upon it and adding to it in what inevitably will be a Fallout 5 set on the West Coast with all of this stuff established. I feel like I'm watching the game plan come together here. But I'm excited to get your thoughts down below. What do you make of the Fallout ending, all the information I presented here today? Do you still feel unconvinced? I imagine I've already seen like comments on other YouTubers' videos, and I've gone through Reddit and everything. There's just a lot of people who, I gotta be honest, I think are just kind of being sticks in the mud and just like, no, they did ruin it. I'm like, I think we'll know if they ruined it or not by season 2. And certainly I'll be the first to sit down in this chair and tell you how badly they messed it up, if they did mess it up. So we'll see when that time comes. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to a pretty long video here today. I hope you're taking great care of yourselves. We'll be back again pretty much every day of this week to talk about Fallout. So keep it locked in here, and I'll see you in the next video. Be sure to check out the full Fallout review if you're interested. Link in the description down below over to Retro Rewind. Subscribe while you're there. And other than that, that's enough from me. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.